The following is a production of the Lance J Radio Network and Best in the World Sports, a division of Definitive Visions Multimedia. The opinions and views expressed are strictly those of the host and do not represent the views of Lance J Radio Network.
You're listening to Jonesy and Brown.
Both you are crazy.
With Mike Jones and John Brown.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the world famous Jonesy and Brown show. My name is John Brown. By my side is my partner in crime, my mellow, my ace in the place, my mellow, my man in the plan, Mr. Mike Jones. Who?
Mike Jones.
Hey, man. Normally it's Dallas week. Normally there's enough juice in a Dallas week that we have content to speak about. Like, we normally have a whole bunch of topics to talk about just concerning the game. But there had been a scuttlebutt about, just some issues that might be happening within the locker room. And I wanted to bring our guest on this week to talk about it. And then in the midst of securing that guest, it just, what was like a small spark turned into like a raging inferno, if you would call it that. Would you call it that, Mike Jones?
I wouldn't go as far as to say raging inferno.
Oh, come on, man. You're not selling it. We got to sell it, man.
Raging inferno makes it sound like it's all over. You can't salvage anything. But there's definitely a fire alarm going off.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in our guest this week. He is a frequent guest on this show, a good friend of this show, member of the family. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Philadelphia Tribune, Mr. O.J. Spivey. What is happening, good brother?
What's up, guys? I think we got a ball game coming up on Sunday, but,
Are you sure? Can you confirm that there will be football played by the Eagles on Sunday?
There will be football played. We just got to get to Sunday.
Well, let's talk about getting to Sunday. Because you know where we are. You know what's happening. And honestly, like most fans, I hate it. I don't like the way this is going down. This is not something that should be surrounding an 8-2 football team. And I really I've tried my hardest to dismiss it all season. You've heard it get mentioned. You've heard people talk about it. I've really tried to dismiss it. I thought it was just things getting blown out of proportion, people trying to invent issues, create issues around a 8-2 football team. There's nothing else to talk about. Let's create some controversy. Thought it was just clickbait. But now, over this last week or so, it's starting to grow to a little bit more than that. AJ Brown had tweeted, used social media to vent a little bit of his frustrations with the Eagles offense. OJ, you wrote an article in the Tribune saying you felt like he needed to keep that in-house. Like, why did you say that? Do you still feel like that is the issue? Like, he should have, the problem was him sharing how he felt with the public.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote that, that was the headline. He should keep it in-house, but that doesn't mean that he did not make good points, that he was not correct in some aspects. But again, how you channel energy, how you channel frustration, anger, that has to go somewhere. But the worst place that he could have put it was out in the media. Worst place he could have put it was out on social media or on Twitch with his friend. Because again, even though we still didn't see a great offensive output, even though, again, I want to preface that they are 8-2. They won both of those low scoring games, which is, part of the character of a team. Okay, can you blow people out, but can you also win close, hard-fought games? Can you win defensive struggles? I mean, we've seen that over since the beginning of the time with football, and some weeks it's going to be that way. But you know, the elephant in the room is that the offense has not been efficient these last 2 weeks. You can make the case for over the season, but
You lead the league in 3 and outs.
Yeah, you lead the league in 3 and outs, but again, okay, you weigh that up against being 8-2, and also the number 1 seed in the NFL, and you've beaten everybody who is giving their best shot to you. So, I mean, we're to the point now where you have talking heads saying they're going beyond winning. So, take away winning. What the hell is that? You can't take away winning. You can't do it. Okay, 8-2 is 8-2. I go back to, I don't want to lose your audience or whatever, but I go back to what Bill Parcells always says: you are what you are. Okay, and the bottom line is what your record says you are. Okay, you can dissect of how you got there and where you can go from there, but they're 8-2, number 1 seed, beat the Packers, beat the Lions, beat the Rams, beat the Buccaneers. They hold a tiebreaker for every NFC contender. As bad as we perceive everything to be, as bad as we want it to be, as bad as it is, all those things. So as a writer, as a columnist, I start with the facts and I go from there. Yes, 3 and out is a fact as well, but how do you incorporate that into an 8-2 squad? I mean, are we going to focus on 3 and outs, or are we going to focus mainly on 8-2?
Well, let me turn this to Mike Jones, because I think one of the biggest things people might say when they say, all right, yes, we are 8-2. Yes, we are winning. Yes, we are on top of the division. Yes, we are on top of the conference. But isn't that where we were in 2023? Now, I understand that there are some differences, but I think that is a claim people will make.
So it's funny. It's actually, in my opinion, on the field wise, at least, the exact opposite of 2023. In 23, the Eagles, they scored points. They turned it over some, but they scored points. And the defense was leaky. The second half of that season, we saw quarterbacks week after week after week set career bests in completion percentage and yards. We couldn't stop anything. This team, however, because the defense under Fangio the last 2 years has looked the way they look, you can keep a Green Bay to 10 points or a Lions team to 9 points and win games like that. That being said, where the similarity is to 23, when early in 23, when they were 10-1 and winning a lot of one-score games and squeaking some wins out, we could look at it, and although we like to say, well, they're 10-1, they're still winning, you could look at it, the eye test, if we were being honest, something's not right here. Something's off, and eventually it caught up with them. And I think right now, we're 8-2, but we can look at this, be honest, and say something's not right with the offense. Something's off. Both things can be true. So when I hear 8-2, yeah, great. Doesn't mean everything's perfect. So that's where I see the similarity to 23. Even with the record, we got to use the eye test as well.
So where do you start? You say, hey, something is off. And it's obviously the offense, because you see the effort that the defense has put in, especially these last 2 weeks with the wins against Green Bay and the wins against Detroit. So obviously the issue is the offense. Where exactly do you start with that? And either of you can jump in on that one.
Well, no, go ahead, Jonesy.
So for me, I start with the offensive line. The passing struggles were there last year as well. but Saquon Barkley had 1,000 yards before contact. Saquon before contact was, I want to say, a top 5 rusher in the league. It was somewhere up like that. And this year, we're repeatedly seeing him getting hit in the backfield. Some of it's new personnel changes, some of it's injuries, guys in and out the lineup. But I do think if guys are able to get healthy as the year goes, Dickerson, Juergens can hold up. Maybe you get Lane back before the end of the season. If he's healthy, ready to go, their play can get better. That's where I'll start. There's more going on, but I'll start with the O-line.
And I'll completely agree with you, because I feel like, yes, whether it be because of injury, whether it be because of personnel changes, this offensive line has taken a step back. And it's almost as if this is the offensive line we kind of expected last season, when we were wondering how could this offensive line move forward without Jason Kelce. When we were asking question marks about Cam Juergens, when we were asking question marks about Landon Dickerson. And both of them are tremendous players, but they've both been hampered with injuries this season. So, to me, it almost any conversation you have past this starts with the offensive line. You want to talk about the offense being predictable. I felt like the offense was predictable last year, but you just couldn't stop it. It was give the ball to Saquon. You knew the ball was going to Saquon. You just couldn't stop him. Now you know the ball is going to Saquon, and you can get past his offensive line. So now you need to throw something different, and I feel like that something different hasn't necessarily been happening, and that's when I feel like, yes, the offensive line.
Let me ask a question.
Go ahead.
If the run game is not working, it's stagnated, and you need something different, as you suggest, wouldn't the next logical step be to open up the passing game?
I would think so.
Okay.
But then the debate then comes, why hasn't this passing game opened up? Is this on the quarterback or is this on the play calling? And I think that's where you see dynamic change, because there are people who blame JALEN, there are people who blame Patullo, there are people who blame Sirianni, and you're going in a whole bunch of different directions.
Yeah, I think it's all of the above. Jonesy started with the offensive line, very much so. I think also too, maybe too many of us took the offensive line for granted because Saquon did have such a phenomenal year last year. But at the end of the year, we did see injuries. We saw injuries with Cam Juergens. We saw injuries with Landon Dickerson. I mean, seeing those guys come off the field last year at that championship game, I didn't think any of them would play in the Super Bowl. But they thugged it out. And then again, you have the departure of Becton. Even though I think Steen has played fairly well considering being a replacement, but injuries have taken their toll. And now, we're talking about Lane Johnson, where, we don't know if he's even going to come back towards the end of the season, because they don't even know how severe his injury is going to be.
Right.
So you start with the offensive line, and then, it made you question a lot of things. The run blocking has really been bad this year for the most part. Like you said, Saquon getting hit in the backfield. It almost made you question, his explosiveness, which I don't think is the case. I still think he does have that, but just the blocking schemes just haven't been executed as they have in past years. And it was unrealistic to think that he would get anywhere near 2,000 yards anyway. But, this is really bad in that aspect. And then when you get to the passing game, ideally you want to see it open up or kind of make up for lack thereof. And I think everybody has a piece of the puzzle here for the blame and the criticism. And a lot of that is, as we're saying now, nobody's on the same page. And, you know, and I hate to go on with the PTSD for 2023, which a lot of people seem to have. But when you have an offense where everyone's not on the same page, and, you know, whether you want to believe certain things or not, what I know is, and what I see is that for the most part, and I'll start here, and I think this is the primary issue, is the lack of design, the lack of ingenuity. Okay, and again, we could blame Petula, we can blame Nick, which is, you know, he's ultimately the head coach and all, but you know, whether you see it on film, whether I see it in the press box and all, and it's not much different. It's not much different than we've seen in past years. Again, they've gotten away with the passing game or the route running that they've done in past years, and they've been, you know, sort of successful at times this year, depending on the opponent. But it's really vanilla. It's really very, very basic. And just the other night, and I mean, you know, there are a couple plays where you see Jalen holding the ball. You know, I'll get to him in a second, but those aspects where I see him holding the ball and there's obviously nobody open, I just rather him get rid of it, or even more so, I would like to see him run. And I think that's another issue in and of itself, that the fact we don't see him running as much. And then that could be a philosophical thing as well. But just getting back to the overall offense, route running, the lack of design, that's really glaring for me, and that's really problematic for me, because whether you're talking about AJ Brown, whether you're talking about Smitty, and even just Dallas Goedert, and that's probably most disappointing too, to where, you know, there's not even much design for him, especially as of late, which I would think where it's kind of worse, you know, for most teams, the tight end is the security blanket. So, you know, that's where I start. And again, I go back to Nick. As much as I think of him as a good coach, of course, you know, Super Bowl winning coach and everything, the guys play for him, that, you know, he's not a great offensive mind. He's just not. And, you know, it's been indicative at times. And then when they're not scoring, as we all see, that seems to rear its ugly head, because I'm wondering, and this is one of the things that I wrote about last week, was, okay, who are the good offensive minds in that building? Do they even exist? Okay, from head coach to offensive coordinator to quarterback coach. Some people have even, you know, are lobbying already for Scott Loeffler, the quarterbacks coach who had a great career at Bowling Green, to take over as OC. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. But I mean, we have seen teams over the years where they have shifted play calling elsewhere. But again, the Eagles are first of all, they're a very prideful organization, and they're not going to admit, you know, them being wrong or anything. So I don't see that happening. But, you know, it's the lack of design. The route running has been not ideal. And then again, when you see Jalen, what does he do with the ball? And again, when I see people who are not open, and again, people can debate what they see on all 22s. I still think that's the worst thing in the world to
given all 22
public, right? So yeah, I ran on that and everything, because half the people that go online, they don't know what they're watching and know what they're talking about.
All 22s and webcams and social media has made us all experts. It doesn't matter who you are. All you have, I have 2 years of Pop Warner football experience, and that is it. But meanwhile, I can watch some all 22 and figure out a rant, and now I am an expert. You know, that is what it is.
And then you have, you know, the
Stop looking like that, Mike. I am an expert. I just said I was.
They had rumors of, Hurts maybe going rogue and, him and AJ going rogue and all those things. And actually some of the, when I look back, some of the Eagles' biggest plays was when they have gone rogue or where he has checked, on the line to make things happen. And, people are stuck on the Lions game. I'm more stuck on the Green Bay game.
Okay.
And if you remember the long touchdown, the one touchdown that he threw to Devontae Smith.
When he yells, just throw it up. Yeah,
he gave a look to the sidelines. And it was kind of like, he gave him like, I'm trying to do something similar. Maybe that it was almost like the Kobe gif when he turns to the fan and he goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and maybe he was like reaffirming something to the sideline. I don't know if that was Nick. I don't know if that was Patullo. And then I even go back even further. When he was interviewed for the Super Bowl, the America's Game documentary, to where like, hey, he said, I have these set of plays I gave Nick and everything. Okay, we should run these. This is what we should run. I reminded him of them. And of course, the famous dagger. Again, it's a long throw it up, everything. Turned out to be one of the most famous plays in Super Bowl history.
Turned out to be just that.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yep.
It's all these imbalances on the offense. And again, I think, no matter who you want to blame, I do think it starts at the top, because again, they've gotten away with really not having, well, I'll say this year, because I do think as critical as we were, or maybe people were with the offense last year, I do think going back to Kellen Moore and then even going back to Shane Steichen, they were probably they've been the two best offensive minds in that building over the past 5 years.
So, all right, so let's talk about this, because there are a couple things that come to mind.
All right.
And I want to go back to, I'm going to start back at the beginning of this Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni journey. Jalen Hurts' second year in the league, first full year as a full-time starter. Nick Sirianni's first year as full-time coach. Do you remember what that year started like, what the offense looked like? They tried to pass. They tried to pass a lot. It was ugly. It was inefficient. And the answer was take the ball out of Hurts' hands and run. That was how they made that run to get to 9-7 and make the playoffs. They followed that same blueprint the next year when they went to the Super Bowl. They were a run-first team with limited passing attempts. Now, Hurts was very efficient that year, but he was not a volume passer. You get to the next year, you bring in Brian Johnson was the OC the following year after Steichen left.
This is the year after the Super Bowl, correct?
The year after the Super Bowl.
So then that was Johnson.
Brian Johnson's the OC in 23. They went to a little bit more of a passing attack. Hurts had 15 interceptions that year. And that was the year they had the collapse at the end. Go flash forward to 24. You bring in Kellen Moore. The first 4 games, they were higher volume passing. They were inefficient. They turned it over. And the answer was to take the ball out of Hurts' hands again. At some point, regardless of who the coordinators were, the answer has always been to take the ball out of Hurts' hands. And this is a statement that stuck with me. It was one that slipped. I was Shady McCoy when he used to be on the morning show on one of those networks with Acho and those guys. They were talking about the Eagles, and he slipped. It was a mistake. he meant to say that one of the players told him. But he actually said the name. He said, AJ told me. Oops, I mean one of the players told me. And then the statement after was, it doesn't matter who the coordinator is. The offense is going to look like it looks like because of the quarterback. When I heard that, I can't be surprised by what I'm seeing and what's coming out now. This is not a this year issue. So it's hard for me to blame Kevin Patullo. At some point, we have to really start taking an honest look at, does this quarterback have limitations, and does the coaching staff trust him? And that's where I think what we're starting to hear come out in some of these reports we're seeing now. How much do they really trust this quarterback?
So given that, and you have used that terminology, you have used the terminology taking the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands plenty of times over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And given what has started to come out, people's frustrations with Jalen,
mm-hmm.
and then and even given the brushback on those observations, because with all the people who have come out, with all the reports of people coming out criticizing Jalen Hurts, there have also been reports of people praising him and who he is in the locker room and who he's always been and the character that he has had throughout the years. And I think one of the observations that people constantly make about Jalen Hurts is that he is a coach's son. He is somebody who is coachable. He comes from a coaching tree. He is somebody who will listen to what coaches have to say. So if you're in an offense that is predictable, people call predictable, and you have gone and you've taken certain steps in the past to address offensive issues that end up working. So even if you're saying, hey, you know what, we need to take more chances downfield, we need to throw the ball downfield, you got a quarterback who is a coach's son who has always said, keep the main thing the main thing. So he's like, hey, why rock the boat? We're 8-2. Do you think that is something that plays into because a wide receiver is going to win his numbers no matter what? That's a story that goes back, for the history of football. You've heard wide receivers always, they want their numbers. Yes, they want to win, but they want to win with their numbers. So if players are frustrated with him, if it's A.J. Brown frustrated with him, is it because he's not going to take the chances downfield? Not because he can't, not necessarily because he can't do it, but because, hey, we have a system that works. We're 8-2. We're the defending champions. We are the champions. We won the last Super Bowl. We won. Why are we trying to rock the boat?
Let me ask this question. When you look at the Eagles' talent, offensive line, let's start with last year. The offensive line they had last year, the receiving weapons they had last year, should they have been the 29th ranked passing offense?
Should they have been? No.
Based solely on the talent. Do you you look at that and think they should be the 29th ranked offense?
That's an arbitrary question, though.
Is it? Because that's what the players are looking at. That's what these players are frustrated about.
Okay, I think, but I understand that. But again, the main thing isn't the main thing. The main thing.
They're frustrated. They're frustrated. Okay, and again, you're not, because of you're going back to 2023. You're kind of disregarding what their current record is. I mean, they are what they are right now. But again, it's all complaints while they're winning, while they have won. Okay. So again, we could look at stats 29th rank, and when they rank offenses and defenses, it's through yards. It's not points per game, it's not through efficiency, it's not through all these analytics. I mean, we're just going to base things just on rank and incorporate them whether into their wins or losses. I mean, there's a lot of proficient offenses out there. I mean, Dallas is one of the most proficient offenses out there too. But, they're not a winning squad. I understand they don't have the defense like the Eagles, but I mean, I don't hold in high regard, okay, where this team ranks as far as yards, okay, and if that doesn't equate to winning. I mean, Cincinnati's been scoring 40 points with Joe Flacco as their quarterback. I know their defense
again, we're
can't
talking
stop
about a team that gives up 40 points a game. That's not the Eagles.
But again, but you're talking offense.
We're talking offense.
You're talking offensive rank.
Offense is regularly stagnant. They play with a lot of short field because of this defense.
But they still win, even though they're stagnant, as you call it. And they have won. They have won for the past 4 years. And they've won more than just about any other team. And that includes Super Bowls, that includes Super Bowl title, all those things. So again, I think what it comes down to is that, and I'm not singling you out, Jonesy, but I think
yes, you are. You can single them out. Go ahead.
When people make that claim, it's like, okay, they're winning, but I don't like how they won. That's what it boils down to.
And that's fair, because that is part of what I'm saying. Because and I hate to keep going back to 2023, but
and I think that's part of the issue too. Why do we keep the NFL is year to year? It's really week to week.
Please let me finish this one, because it's not. I'm not comparing this team to 23, but it's the argument per se. And because when they were 10-1, and people would tell me, why do you care how the win looks? They're winning. It's because when I look at it, I know something's not right. And the record will eventually, if something's not right, it's not going to stay there. And that's what I'm looking at. This offense, it's not right. Like, we can, none of it, and it was not just AJ. Lane Johnson has said it. Devontae has said it. Saquon has said it. AJ's been the most vocal about it, but he's not the only one telling you the offense isn't right.
Yeah, it isn't right, and it does need to improve. And because again, yes, if I'm taking it week to week and everything, depending on the opponent. I mean, we even said the previous week, okay, they can't score 10 points against Detroit and expect to win. Well, they scored 16 and still won.
Right.
So again, as much as we want the offense to look a certain way, it's still not preventing them from winning. And again, we still have the PTSD from 2023 because it keeps coming up, even though they overcame that last year. For the most part, they even overcome it this year. And it still has a way to go. But again, I just don't think it's because they have overcome it, because they have won so consistently. I think it's a bit disingenuous to just always refer back to 2023. And we're also assuming that they didn't learn anything from 2023, just because we're not seeing the offense as efficient as we want it to be.
OJ, you interact with this team more than Jonesy and I do. In that me and Jonesy don't interact with this team at all. No. But what I'm saying, it does give you a better insight. Jonesy and I can come in and we can talk about what we think they're saying.
Which,
how
hopefully I share with you guys, and you get something.
No, we want all that dirt, man. We want all the.
I can't help you there.
No, but you have a better finger on the pulse of this team, yes, and it seems as if over these last couple of weeks, this team has been painted as dysfunctional, and this team is just falling apart at the seams. You got your star quarterback and your star wide receiver who hate each other, even though there's plenty of videos and mic'd up segments.
Because on that point, Deshaun Jackson did on the air this week say he knows, he wouldn't get into specifics, but says he knows there's something off the field, something personal going on between those guys as well. So take that as you will as well.
And that kind of leads me to my question. You are in that locker room more than Jonesy and I. What is your assessment of that locker room?
let me preface by saying, as a media member, and they seem to be more strict as the weeks go on, because they had a slight change. And I'm still trying to figure out how this went about. When we trekked down to the locker room or outside in the tunnel and everything, we used to capture, the players coming off the field and everything, win or loss and all that. Just, kind of share that with fans, at least me, and a few other guys. Well, we're restricted now. We're like off to the side, when you go back in school for recess, we line up to the side. We can't see anything. So
is that an NBC? Is that an NBC sports thing? Like like they can be the only people who do that gets that shot.
Well, TV does get more access than the print guys, the print people. So that's already been in place, but something that happened, and I'm really not sure. But anyway, I digress. But I say that to say is they're only going to let us see what they want us to see. So by the time we get in that locker room, win or loss, and again, they've been winning much more than they've been losing, right? So, and it's only been one home loss. So I've only gotten to witness what happens after a loss. So when we go in there, it's always upbeat. It's always the players always eager to talk, except for what you see when everybody and the grandmother's always going to be at AJ Brown's locker. They're always going to be at Devontae Smith's locker. Even though sometimes I have such a good rapport with Smitty where I can get him one-on-one sometimes. But, it's been nothing but upbeat. It's been nothing but, positive, and add to refer to what Jonesy's been saying. They're happy with the wins, but, you talk to the offensive guys that say we need to improve. We need to execute. But what they've been telling us, outside of what the other noise is, but when I get from the offensive players is they're more focused on the self-inflicted wounds, being offsides, false starts, maybe dropping a pass or two, or the holding, the penalties, different things, or maybe being lined up wrong, or maybe missing assignments. That goes more so to the offensive line. That's more of what they told me that they talk about. And also too on the defensive side, even I'll say this on the defensive side, now that the defense has been dominant, and man, watching Jalen Phillips these past 2 weeks has been incredible. I didn't realize how big he was too. But anyway,
those additions at the deadline were massive.
Yeah. And, I think we also had to keep in mind too, early in the season, the defense was not as good because of all the changes and all of the turnover, and they weren't getting the pass. They weren't happy with their pass rush. It came out now that, they were asking Brandon Graham to come back before the season even started.
From August.
Right. Exactly. So
took a sweet time, didn't
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, let me think about that, guy. I'll get back to you.
Right. So with Phillips in there, and they're back healthy now, so that's a lot too. But these past couple of weeks, talking to Devontae saying, hey, defense, they got our back, while we're trying to get on the same page and struggling and everything. But on the contrary, early in the season, when the defense was leaking a lot of oil, especially against the run, they were saying the same thing, even though the offenses hadn't been particularly juggernauts, except for games like against Minnesota, who at the time they still had a good defense. But they all seem to be together. They're only going to let us see what they want us to see. They're always prepped and everything. But I don't get any of that or from the locker room as I saw in 2023. Now, back then, guys, you could almost cut it with a knife because it was not only that was a coaching issue, right? So it was a turmoil with the coach, and they panicked by making that change and then putting Patricia in charge and everything. That was just a total panic move. Now, people want the Eagles to panic this year and change Patullo. And I don't foresee any of that happening, because my philosophy is, my thought is, good to great teams don't make panic moves, because that's just giving all of it. That's just letting everybody know that, it's out of control. So, but I will say, how they handle this, no matter, who we want to send blame to, how they handle these next couple weeks. And I think this game, I know you'll probably ask me about this later, but I think this is an important game this week against Dallas. So I think it's very important.
I agree. I agree completely.
For not only winning, but, getting some of that offensive efficiency. We're trying to grow on that offensive. This exactly, Jonesy. So, I don't know if I would foresee or look for a blowout. Dallas is a little bit better with Quinnen Williams, because he's one of the best defensive linemen in the league.
Logan Wilson's back.
Yeah, that's another key, right? Exactly. So this is not going to be easy for a struggling offense. So I mean, I guess we're going to say again, they're going to have to score more than 60 points to maybe beat Dallas, because they could be efficient. But what that defense is doing, man, it's like. But no, go ahead.
No, I guess also because it's also a similar situation to that first Giants game, where you're playing a division opponent, someone who is very familiar with you, someone who you've played already, and to a point,
short week,
coming off a short week, and to a point that Jonesy has made earlier this season, when you're playing the team that just won the Super Bowl. You're going to get their best shot. Yes, we've seen the Dallas Cowboys already this season, but still, it's another opportunity on the national scale.
They feel like they're healthy now. They've got the new guys now. And they're making a final push to try to keep their season alive.
Yeah, this is it for them. Yeah,
and plus, with all the news,
with all the
news, they think they're smelling blood.
Yeah, they lost to us in week 1. They have every reason to come in motivated this week.
Yeah, they're feeling pretty good about themselves. So yeah, they have the, I don't know how much they use this as motivation. They had an unfortunate tragedy with kneeling and everything. Right. So, that athletes do anything to, kind of motivate or inspire themselves. So, this is, and I hate the term trap game, but if we look throughout this whole season, this is probably as big a potential trap game as we'll see this year.
Absolutely.
You think so? I mean, because it's not like, I understand that. I understand the Chicago Bears.
Think about what he just said, because you're coming off back-to-back weeks with the Packers and Lions, who are looked at
brutal physical games too.
And those two teams, along with the Rams, are looked at as that group right at the top of the conference who's competing to get to the Super Bowl. You just saw 2 of them back to back. You got the Cowboys this week. Then you've got Black Friday against the upstart Bears. And then you've got the Bills. This is on paper the lull in the schedule. Trap game all over it.
No, I understand that point. I guess I'm not necessarily sure that even the Eagles, given the talk that has come out of that camp over the last week and a half, believe that they as a team are in a position to look past the Dallas Cowboys. Whereas, like, I understand why you would look at the Dallas Cowboys and you might possibly look past them, but they know what's going on. They see what that offense has done over the last couple of weeks. So they know that this isn't, they have to take this game seriously. And it's a situation where, given the talk of what's been going on, given the way things have played out this last week and a half, if they were to come out and lose on Sunday, nobody's going to have a good Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is ruined for the Eagles, and possibly Eagles fans. Nobody wants this to be the topic. The Eagles might Eagles lose on Sunday. Eagles might be the number one topic you don't want to talk about at the Thanksgiving. It might surpass politics as what you don't want to talk about at the Thanksgiving.
Because of all the outside noise, they can't lose this game.
If they lose this game 42-41 and the offense looks great, I think they could survive that.
No,
I hear
what you're saying.
I think a good offensive performance may be this week more important than actually winning.
No.
I think you can survive a loss if the offense is good.
That's how crazy it's been. I normally don't agree with that kind of concept, but
the way it's been recently, I think a good offensive performance is more important than the win this week.
I won't go that far, but I see your point.
I don't. I'm sorry, Jonesy. I'm out on that point. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, because everything.
But I don't know if I agree with that, man.
Okay. You want the win.
I do.
I want the win.
That's how diabolical this fan base is, this city is, that people will accept the 42-41 loss, then a win that will make them 9-2, that much more closer to winning the NFC East. I mean, if they beat Dallas and other things happen, they could clinch the NFC East on Black Friday.
Right. But if they win 9-3, the noise gets louder.
Oh, yeah. No. They're I absolutely agree with you with that. They come out there on Sunday and win 9-3. They come out there and win 9-3. Yes, I am with you on that.
That's all I'm saying.
That will be a win that's as close to a loss as possible as there could possibly be.
And think about it.
Can
To
you
win
settle
9-3,
for 24-20, Jonesy? Can you settle for 24-20?
I'd rather.
Yeah, I could settle for that. If it's not a lot of 3 and outs and
24-12, just a bunch of field goals. But 24 points, I could live with 24 points.
Right. Then that's all my point was. I went to a little extreme with 40s versus 9-3, but you know what?
No, you're not. Listen, you're not off, man. You listen. The way everything is going on, you are not off.
Right. That's just how it feels right now. Like wins, we all know should be the most important thing.
I think you try to write my column, man.
but look at the Discord. I understand how they win. How they win is important, and what they do as they win is important. But you talk about we've really prioritized stats over winning. Like people, like you said, who is it? This take winning aside, take winning out of it. And I'm looking at them like, why?
Can I answer that?
I will let you answer that, but I would like before you answer that, I want to invoke the words of the great Herman Edwards. Hello, you play to win the game.
You did a good job of answering it earlier too, Josie. But no, go ahead.
So seriously, because I want to make this comparison. The Legion of Boom, Seattle Seahawks. They had a very, very good roster. They had a very, very not even almost. They had a great defense at their peak. They had a very successful running game. And they had a quarterback who was solid that got a lot of credit for the winning when there was a lot more than just the quarterback to be reasons why that team won. Eventually, and that you had the quarterback who also gave you cliche answers to everything, didn't show a lot of personality, and eventually it started to wear thin with his teammates. I truly hope that's not what we're seeing here, because I can see a lot of similarities in the two situations. And with Seattle, Russell Wilson didn't have superstar receivers to feed. he had Doug Baldwin and I can't even remember the other guy's name. But I just don't know how long. And OJ, you can go with you'll follow me with superstar athletes, great athletes in any sport, whether or not they know the right things to say in front of the mic, all have egos. You don't get to be a great athlete without having that level of confidence, belief, ego. So when you see yourself not performing at the level that you believe you could perform at, whatever reason is, I'm not getting the opportunity or whatever it will begin to frustrate them. And that's where I think where like people are like, AJ Brown has never actually said the words, I want the ball all the time. AJ Brown does want to see himself be a productive part of this offense, though. And while I like OJ, you said keep it in house, I'm with you. Who's to say that he hasn't voiced his concerns in house the last 2-3 seasons? And he's just at a point now where it is what it is.
Well, my only pushback to that, Jonesy, is let's take a look at AJ Brown's career. And this is short of this year because it's been different and he hasn't had the ball as much, and it's probably not going to work out the way he wanted it, and hence the frustration. You look back at AJ's 3 previous years with the Eagles. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. 3 straight, and he just wasn't getting over 1,000 yards. They were pretty significant.
Right.
3 straight All-Pro seasons. Super Bowl ring. And within those 3 years, he already owns a handful of team records. I even believe a couple of NFL records.
He's been a very good receiver here.
Within those 3 years. I mean, all pro. I mean, people talk about Pro Bowl. All pro is
the step above.
The creme de la creme. That means you're one of the top 5 receivers in the entire league, not the conference.
Right.
Right. So he has all of those accolades, but yet he's still unhappy. Unhappy last year, unhappy this year. I get it even more so this year than other years. But again, it's all in the concept of all of this team success. Okay. And if he gets the ball more, let's just say he does get the ball more and he ends up with, over 1,000 yards. He just has this incredible last 7 games of the season. And they still end up 14-3. And they're still the number 1 seed. What changes? Other than, okay, we feel good about the offense. What changes with that? Is that just morale for him, morale for the team? Is their record essentially any better because he got all his within the team concept? That's my only pushback to that. He's already been very successful. He's already gotten a contract, and this is all for what we say, what the limitations are with Jalen Hurts and all those things. This is all with Jalen Hurts as his quarterback. This ain't Tanner McKee. This ain't Kenny Pickett. This ain't Gardner Minshew or even Carson Wentz, who still fans haven't gotten over Jalen Hurts replacing him. So, I mean, just as much as we want to see Jalen Hurts be this prolific 4,000 yard, 4 or 5,000 yard passer, I mean, he's gotten a lot of people paid, AJ Brown included.
Absolutely.
Starting with him. So that's my only pushback with it.
And I understand. I would make this is an analogy I'll make, because JB, you've heard me say this before. And I'm gonna make a basketball analogy. if I'm playing basketball, I could be a great player on a team with a couple of other great players. But if my point guard comes up, shoots the ball every time, and I never get touches, eventually I'll start to be disengaged. Not because I'm less good of a player, but because I'm less involved. That's just the human nature of the sport. And you use the word, what's the difference? And you question morale. I think morale is the big difference, simply for the standpoint that when players feel engaged and feel part of the process, you get a lot more out of them than when they feel like they're just spectators. And we're starting to see and hear questions about, did AJ quit on that route? But you go watch the tape the week before, it's the same route and the ball doesn't come. It's so I do think morale is the big issue of what is different if we start to see, and I'm not saying he got to get 15 targets a game, just the whole passing function being more efficient in general. I think morale is the key, what would matter there.
Yeah, I as an individual, I can relate to that, but with football, football is the ultimate team game, and you have assignments on every play, whether you're getting the ball or not. You have assignments, and your absolute job, whether you're blocking, whether you're a decoy, whether, as he even said his words himself on the tush push, looking busy, that's your assignment.
And you're supposed to give max effort to that assignment.
Maximum effort, which I know is very, very hard to do. I've talked to players and they say it's almost impossible to give maximum effort on every single play.
Right.
And I relate to that because
I don't do that. That's all I'm saying. I just want to see guys stay engaged and we're not looking at them giving up on routes.
And ultimately that is on the coaching staff, right? But again, it is that morale's a good thing, but I guess I've come from the era where winning was always the best deodorant, but obviously that doesn't apply these days.
We're a little old now. These kids are different,
right? And that's right too. And I'm glad you make that point. If I could just squeeze this in, and I maybe touched on this before, but because today's athlete is different. And even like from a cultural standpoint, and this is even just off the field, guys. So from a cultural standpoint, and what I also try to do is like from a geographical standpoint, you know what I mean? It's one thing for me, I'm a black man from the Northeast. I'm a black man from West Philly. And what I try to do to relate to players like AJ and Devontae is ask them stuff about knowing that they're black men from the South. And being black from the South is being different from being black in the Northeast. We all black in this country, but it's different culture, different dynamics, all those things. So I try to incorporate that in some of the questions that I ask, and just to even try to relate to them, because I know there's not only age difference and sometimes there's a cultural difference, and that's one of the big reasons why I'm in there, because it's not many of us. Because folks are asking questions. You have guys there asking questions. It's like, I try not to laugh half the time. I mean, I really do. So I mean, you do give me crazy looks when I go to the press box anyway. So I don't care. But I try not to laugh at some of the questions, man. And I know you mentioned Jalen earlier, Jonesy, with the with his cliches and everything, but it's just sometimes they don't know what the hell to ask these guys, man.
Oh, absolutely. Really I get it. Like, if he were to actually say what he really wanted, sometimes he'd probably just be making fun of them. Like, what kind of stupid question is that?
And that's another thing. These guys are very, very guarded. Of course, they're prepped by PR and everything, but they're very, very guarded. And it's interesting sometimes. But again, hopefully I try to cut through all of that, because I have a couple of things in my back pocket that I can relate to them.
Oh, no, you do a great job.
You do a great job, and I think that kind of lends to.
Thank you. That means a lot.
No, it does, man, and that's why we enjoy having you on the show. That's why we enjoy and appreciate the fact that you have been so willing to frequently come on our show. You're somebody who we can always reach out to when we need insight. and you've always been willing to come, jump on our platform, jump on our medium, and we do appreciate that. And I think seeing that relationship that you have been able to form with certain players, it kind of speaks to a philosophy I had earlier that I've kind of had to backtrack on. But like going back to the Carson Wentz issues and the friction that he had within the locker room. There were times when you were hearing stories, and Jonesy, you can speak to this because this is a conversation that you and I have had on this show at times, where I was questioning I was questioning the fact, and I had doubts about some of these reports based on who was reporting it. Whereas I found
that's
it hard
important, though.
Well, I would find it hard to believe that there were so many writers, so many beat writers who are in this locker room every day, and players are choosing to confide and speak to like national reporter over them. And over the years, I've shared that opinion with people, and people are like, no, that happens. There is some credence, and you shouldn't dismiss it. And I've had to go back on that way of thinking.
Sometimes agents have relationships with national people, and you get agent-driven leaks that happen.
Yeah,
absolutely, yeah. That's very true.
And it's funny that you would speak to that because, it was, for me personally, it was easy to write off Diana Rossini. It was just easy for me to just say, hey, she's not in this locker room.
Did you know her husband's an Eagles fan?
No, I did not know. He's probably mad at her right now. He's like, what are you doing to my squad right now? But for me, it was like, okay, she's not in this locker room every day. She does, what does she know? And then she had come out and implied a little bit that a lot of her observations and her posts were just based on reading tea leaves of social media. So I'm like, you just doing the same thing we doing. You a professional. You just doing what I'm doing, reading these posts and reading these tweets and just coming out with an opinion. But so I was kind of like, I spent the time poking fun at that. So whenever somebody would come out with a post or a story that refuted that, someone with the source saying, hey, I spoke to a person in the locker room, and they're like, yeah, man, Jalen's cool. He's good. Everything's all good. I would say, hey, I trust this person's sources over Diana Rossini. And it was interesting because one of the first people to actually respond to me was Spike Eskin. And I don't claim to be, good friends with him. He is somebody I've met. He's somebody I've interacted with in professional circles. But, we're not buddy or anything like that. But I was surprised. And one of the things that he implied, and I think I shared his post with you, Jonesy, was like he felt like, okay, it's clearly that I think it was a Sal Pal post. And he was like, Sal Pal's post might be someone within the organization, but Rossini's sources are clearly AJ Brown's people. Somebody within AJ Brown's team, whether it's somebody who knows him, somebody who's cool with him, or somebody who works for him.
Here's usually what happens. If it's agent based or it's from like player representatives or even from the team in some aspect, they go to people who's going to take the beat. They go to people who is going to get it out there, not necessarily whether it's true or not. But if it has, if it has wings or it has tails, or the person feels it has tails, they're going to get it out there. And, in this social media age, I mean, journalism has always been competitive, but with the advent of social media, it's really, you're running with the bulls and you're trying to.
There's a rush to get to print, get content out.
There's a rush to get it posted.
Right.
Not even print it. It's the rush to get it.
I'm still saying get to print, get to post.
No, it's fine. Yeah, my aspect, yes. So and but I mean, thankfully, and I'm kind of glad that I'm not caught up in that because I probably wouldn't last long. But thankfully,
what do you mean you wouldn't last long? What do you mean by that?
Because I'm not. Yeah, I'm not a clickbait dude. I wouldn't want to choose a career where I have to be on my phone 24/7 and trying to break news and all of those things. I don't have that personality. I don't have a desire. I mean, an opportunity for me came up to apply to be a beat writer. I won't say for who, but I have no desire to be a beat writer. But when I say that, I admire everyone who does the beat writing because they really have most of it, whether you agree with them or not, or whether you agree with their agenda or not. I have an appreciation for them because I do watch them work, not just in the locker room. I do watch them work when they're navigating practice, when they're navigating training camp. A couple of them I become, a bit friendly with and all, but overall, I just appreciate the craft. And, at this point in my life, I don't have a desire to do it. But going back to your original point, yeah, if there's agents or somebody with the team, they want to get something out there. Even the thing with, this week, as far as Jalen Hurts is concerned. And, I want to touch on that if I can real quick. There's something part of that I'm writing about. But obviously, whoever that leak was in the Eagles organization, was the player, or I do think it was somebody other than a player. They wanted to get that out, and they knew just
the way it was reported. It made it sound as though it was someone in the coaching or front office, and not a player.
Exactly,
but it was said that players aren't the only ones that are frustrated.
Right. So it could be an assistant of the assistant of the assistant. Right.
Right.
So where they're getting that out, or you might have somebody in the room, in the equipment room or whatever, who's hearing things or whatever at the in the cafeteria or something, right? So it could be a number of those things where the sources are, but obviously they had a long-standing relationship with who reported it, and I think it's probably somebody who predates the Nick Sirianni and Jalen Hurts era, probably. That's what I'm guessing. But anyway, so going back to Jalen Hurts, and again, this is going to be part of my column, and I'm just kind of revisiting it. I had a great sit down with Mike Quick before the season started, and he sat down with us, not only me, but our publisher and my editors. And he talked to us about a number of things, and it was just phenomenal. Talking about his career as a player, his career as a broadcaster, and then we got on the subject of the Eagles, this current Eagles team. And of course, I asked him about Jalen Hurts. And I asked him about playing receiver as opposed to playing receiver back then and playing receiver now. But just going back to Hurts, and a couple things when I first wrote the article about Quick, and all this came out this week, stuff that he said to me kind of rehashed. First thing I asked when I asked him about Jalen Hurts, first thing he said was uncompromising. Now, take whatever you think about Hurts, pro or con. That word now sticks out to me. You're right.
That word definitely jumps out when you hear it.
Uncompromising. He said he's uncompromising about himself. He's uncompromising about how he works, his work ethic. He also said that he's special. But that word uncompromising came with me. But he also said that whether the coaches like it or whether his guys like it, he still remains uncompromising to his work and his commitment to winning. So as we were talking, like, I guess this past hour, I've given it to you guys first because I didn't really express it on Twitter the way I wanted to, because I was kind of saving it for my column.
Well, I think that kind of, like, for me, it's one of those things where even though me and Jonesy might necessarily not be on the same page, we're going to take that as yeah, that just proves my point. And I can totally see Josie saying, that just proves my point too.
But honestly, that word kind of fits and explains both our points.
Yes.
that's what I love about it, right?
Right.
It does.
Like,
I think to my point, I think like Jalen Hurts is somebody like, hey, the main thing is the main thing. We winning. So, I understand you upset. I understand that there might be players upset with how this offense necessarily goes. You want me to do something different.
And even coaches, right.
And like, we winning though.
right.
We winning and we're not turning the ball over.
He's going to, it's safe to say that he's going to piss people off. He has pissed people off. And I do think you did make an interesting point earlier, Jonesy. As long as they're winning, but they're winning at a great clip. But yeah, we'll see how it does. 2, 3, 4 years from now. I mean, he'll probably get a new contract by then, but we'll see how that manifests. I do think they're two totally different people. Him and Wilson. I know you weren't trying to make that point,
right?
But because Hurts is only going to be out unless he really wants to be out. But Russell Wilson is kind of like what the new age Randall Cunningham was, because he's going to be, he's going to be at the Grammys, he's going to be at the Oscars, all those things. Where Jalen not necessarily. You might just see him at the Met, the Met Gala.
Jalen home,
because his wife wants to go. So, yeah. But that's that uncompromising thing that stuck with me, and I think you can interpret that in so many ways, and positive and not so positive. Yeah, exactly. So that's what I wanted to give you before we were done here.
All right, real quick, Jonesy, I wanted to pose this question to you. Like, how do you personally navigate who to listen to, who not to listen to, as you're hearing people on both sides of the equation? There have been pro Jalen points. There have been anti-Jalen points. You and I were lucky enough that we can just call on a brother like OJ to come on and just help us, figure it all out. But you personally, how have you navigated that?
Well, I guess for me, guys like me and you, it's a little different because we have relationships with some people that cover the team. So you generally get a feeling for who's just trying to put solid information out versus who's trying to generate clicks online. And so when you get the clickbait guy, you got to take things with a grain of salt. Whereas a guy who is just trying to give good information, honestly, what I'm wondering with him is, what does he know that he left out because he hasn't been able to triple verify it yet? But either way, I feel like there's something I'm missing. But usually you can kind of piece it together if you're really paying attention.
No, I understand. And to that point, because you're hearing things on both sides. You hear one way, you hear it another way, and somewhere in the middle is the truth.
Right. I'll give you a perfect example. Say I'm reading an article OJ wrote, right? And he's discussing whatever's going on between the quarterback and the wide receiver. I wouldn't expect OJ to be telling me about the personal beef because one of them did something with the other one's girl, and I just made that up. I'm not saying I know anything, but that's not the type of salacious detail I'd be expected to get from a guy like OJ. I'd expected him to be telling me what's going on in the locker room and on the field. Whereas there are other clickbait guys, he might come out and be like, "Oh, well, you know what I mean."
And I agree, and I think sometimes you and I, we speak to the dynamic of who we are in Philadelphia sports media, in the sense that we were fans who took advantage of a situation to give us a platform. So it's like there are people who don't know the difference between the clickbait guys and the people who are necessarily legit writers or whatever.
There's check on social media and say it's got to be true.
But I also say that because it's like, as much as we want to dismiss clickbait, but that's also become almost like a weapon, as if somebody says something that we don't like. And I will admit that that's pretty much what I did with Diana Rossini. But, like if somebody says something that we don't like, we just dismiss it as clickbait. And for me personally, it's like there are people within this circle, within this market, who I have a relationship with a friendship with. So there might be someone that says, yeah, that OJ guy, oh, he's just clickbait guy. He's just talking. I'm like, no. Like, I've known OJ for years. And it's so, and that is something I've legit said to people. Like, look, I've now known OJ for years. He was one when I wanted to do this.
I need some names. I'm from West Philly and I'm a Gemini, so I need some names.
Making the list.
First of all,
I'm just kidding.
I've kind of
not about the West Philly.
There's been a couple of times when I've tagged you in posts with people who've said those things, and I'm just like, hey man, if OJ wants to come in here, yeah, why don't you tell OJ what you were saying about this, and this? But to that point is like, there have been times when I've said, no, this guy isn't about that. I know this guy. And I say that to say, we've heard these stories. And for one, I try to dismiss it as clickbait. I try to dismiss it as things that are getting blown out of proportion, because in the end, this team is still 8-2. You need to have something to talk about. But then on Sunday, you had Derek Gunn talking about it. You had Mark Farzetta talking about it. You had Seth Joyner talking about it. And these are three individuals that, Jonesy, you and I, we've had on this show. It's like, I've known Derek Gunn. I've known Derek Gunn for 17 years.
You've worked with him.
I've worked with Derek Gunn.
Yeah, right.
I've watched him work sources. I've sat in a room and watched him operate. I've watched and I have seen, I have personal accounts of watching players be candid with Derek Gunn.
And you build those things over time.
Yes, you build that over time. So I know. Years. So it's like, okay, I'm not necessarily feeling what he's saying, but when someone like him when someone like him says it, I can't just dismiss it.
Right.
I can't, now I'm listening.
For me with that, it's not so much the messenger because of what he said. The issue I have was the message, and again, them knowing who to get it to. I don't question Derek Gunn's credibility. I have yet to meet him because when I started covering the team, I believe that was the first year where he was not covering the team. So we have not crossed paths like that. But again, how you get your news nowadays is very important. It's critical. I mean, even from just regular news, that's a whole nother topic. But because I just encourage fans to be, as you say, be an educated consumer or you be an educated voter. I try to encourage fans to be an educated fan. And it could be just as simple as watching the entire press conference, because what reporters are notorious for doing, and it's why I only try to post things that I ask and let it be that, okay, this is just me. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to speak for other people and everything. Thus, I do it in print and then I'll cite, who asked this or whatever. But did a whole press conference, because if you're going to get a soundbite from AJ Brown or Jalen Hurts or someone as most respected like a Lane Johnson or a Brandon Graham, and if you just get one statement from them, that unfortunately becomes representative of the entire press conference. And and I hate when reporters do that. That's also unfair it's unfair to the player and it's unfair to the fan. So that's why I try to say, okay, AJ Brown said this. Watch the entire press conference so you can get the contextual aspect of it. even watch it so you can, body language is key too, right?
Yep.
So, and one last thing I wanted to say, and I want to add this on because I didn't want to make this incomplete. One thing that Quick also said about Jalen Hurts being uncompromising, he also added to where if you wanted someone to start a business with, or start something with, or if you had, or here's what he really said. He said, if you have something that you covet, you would want him to be the head of it. You don't want him to lead it. So that's another thing that he said as far as him being uncompromising. That's on the positive end. He didn't say anything on the con end. I want to say that also, but that was his point. But again, going back to that operative word that he said,
because uncompromising is is a way better word than stubborn. Where if somebody's stubborn, then you're.
Which is what the narrative is becoming. And then I even went as far as saying that because it's apparently coming from coaches, he's now being accused of being insubordinate.
When did I think I heard you say you said something about this,
right? And those are my words, not theirs, right?
Yep.
So, but essentially, that's what you're saying. If you're implying that he's not running the offense the way you should, you're accusing him of being subordinate. So, what do you do with a subordinate player, whether that be the quarterback or whoever? What
usually
do you do
in football, you get rid of them.
Right. So
in football, you get rid of them.
Here's what I'm saying, Jonesy. And I know he understands. He has a no trade clause and everything, and all that, which is worth the paper is written on too. But if he's so stubborn, if he's so uncompromising and so much going rogue, what are you going to do in the near future?
I'm glad you said that, because when you start to hear stories like that come out,
and I'm not saying that as a dare. Go ahead, Jones.
And I'm not saying they're all the way at the point where they're ready to part ways or anything like that. But when you start to hear stories like that, you're not extremely far away either.
But do you usually hear stories like that when somebody's winning as opposed to when they're losing? That's really what you really hear when somebody's losing.
Everybody's losing. Yeah. You usually don't hear those stories when someone's winning, not coming from anyone in the organization.
Right.
Which is why you're accustomed to hearing them when somebody, like when they're looking to rationalize moving on from a player that they paid, but you're not winning. This team is winning.
How do we absorb that going forward?
Right. This team is winning
going forward.
So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. Not only this season, but going into the off season next year. There's a lot of material for guys like us coming up.
It is, and what's crazy about it is just what we had talked about before at the top of the show. It's Dallas week, and we're almost out of time, and we really haven't even talked about the game on Sunday. We
not at all.
Shows damn near an hour and a half, and we've barely talked about it. So OJ, as we wrap things up, we want to put you down with how our new mode of operations and how we do things here on the Jonesy and Brown show. We no longer do predictions. We have banned predictions from this show.
We were doing them last season early. We took a loss. We stopped doing predictions, and they went on a run. So we never went back to it.
We never went back to them.
Oh, I get it.
So predictions are still. We thought about when they lost the 2 in a row, when they had that bad week.
Let me get in the way of it.
When they had that bad week, we considered bringing it back, but we decided to stick with it, and they dug their way out of it. But I do want to ask you, because what we do ask for, we don't do predictions, but we do expectations. What do you expect to see on Sunday versus the Dallas Cowboys?
Number one, hopefully more offensive efficiency, more points. It seems obvious, right? But on a more serious note, I think it's just going to come down to the trenches. I'm a little concerned with the offense. Well, I won't say I'm as concerned. I think my concern is the center position. Will Cam Jurgens play? How effective will he be? And if he's not effective, how ready will Brett Toth be? Because again, you now got Quentin Williams on the other side, and if you give him free reign, he can be disruptive.
Yeah.
Okay. And what do they do different offensively? I'm looking for, okay, will they do something different? Will they get back to basics? I mean, we don't even see the RPO anymore. I know other people have mentioned that this week. We don't even see that anymore. Right. I mean, can you even do it this day and age, or maybe they just say, oh yeah, people are hip to it and we don't want to do it anymore. I'm not really concerned defensively. I would think Dallas will probably put up a few points, but all eyes on the offense. And I think we can all agree to that. And how efficient will they be? I do expect them to win. How they win is the mystery.
So I'll say something funny, and I mean this in all sincerity. I actually do expect a low-scoring, ugly game.
Even from the Cowboys offense.
I think the Eagles defense is playing at a level right now where they can muck it up and make it ugly for the Cowboys offense. And their defense is still not great, but improved enough where with Lane Johnson out, we're not sure about how Cam Jurgens' health is yet. It could just be an ugly game both ways, which is the last thing we want as fans, but I could very easily see it going that way.
I expect Jalen Carter to keep all his bodily fluids to himself. I expect him to play the entire. I expect him to play the entire game. I think that will be a difference maker. I love how Carter and Davis have been playing these last couple of weeks. For a future show, I think is going to have to come back to, and maybe at the end of the season, maybe when it's all said and done, we will have to then have a conversation about how this defensive line compares to defensive lines of the past. Are we now at the point where we can start comparing Davis and Jalen Carter
Phillips?
Yep. Because and plus, this is now the second straight year where Howie Roseman has made a move that totally that almost makes you completely forget missed moves and moves that didn't hit. Here's a move that hit so hard that you almost don't realize his misses. Last year
Zach Bond was so good you forgot about Bryce Huff.
Exactly. Yes. Jalen Hunt, emerging last season. So now you're sitting there, and Phillips played so well, you forget that they traded for two guys that have retired before they even played. You got guys that just quit the whole game of football, and that would blow. You think about that, and it's like what that would do to a team. And now we're still sitting talking about how this defense has been better than ever the last couple of weeks. But I say all this to say that, God, I don't want my Thanksgiving ruined by a 9-3 game like Jonesy is rooting for.
Hey, man, I need more content.
Maybe
you could have all that. They win 9-3.
Might have to settle for 17-13 or something.
If they win 9-3, you tune in next week for the Jonesy show.
Oh God,
because Brown won't be here. But nonetheless, they're not going to light it up. But I do expect to see some sort of improvement. It's a work in progress, and that's exactly what I expect to see on Sunday. A work in progress. OJ, a lot of people watching today, man. Tell them how they can find you.
Well, you can find me at phillytrip.com. That's where all my columns are. Thank you for your support. You can find me on Twitter at OJ Philly. Actually, all the socials. I'm on Threads now. I'm on Blue Sky. People who are on there as well. I'm even on TikTok, so some of my videos I try to upload and all, and look for some of my videos. I do work with Patty Jackson from WDAS-FM. I give her a weekly sports report, so check out her page as well.
I see her posting you, man. It's like, look, OJ Spivey. I'm like, that's my man. Over there hanging
I got to tell you
Jackson.
how that story came about, so I'll tell you that, guys, at another time. Well,
another time. No, go ahead, man. You got it.
No, I mean, I've known Patty for quite a while. I'm sure you probably have too, JB, and she reached out to me before the season, and we've always just talked here and there through socials and stuff, and she just says, hey, I'm a fan. I love your work. I want you to come on with me and do reports for the season. And you know how legendary Patty Jackson is in this city, right? So who can say no to Patty, right? So and here we are. So again, I enjoy doing it. We have fun. And it's just another great opportunity to just kind of, give a little insight about the Birds and, and Sixers, Phillies, all that other stuff too. So
nice. It's funny. Like I tell people, right, there are two Patties in Philadelphia. There's Patty with a Y and there's Patty with an I. And it's funny that you almost always know which one you're talking about, without even any context. If you're talking about Patty or you talk about Patty, you immediately know. But there are two Patties, and there are two legendary Patties in this city.
Absolutely.
But overall, man, just proud of your success. Love seeing you there. Love seeing you, see other people learn to appreciate what we have known for years, man. And, thank you for coming on. Thank you for your support of Jonesy and Brown. We appreciate you, good brother.
I appreciate you guys. It's always fun to be on. You guys make me think. And, it's always fun. So thank you.
As long as you think this is not a good idea to come on our show. As long as that's not
never that. Whatever you need, you guys. Thank you.
Appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man.
All right, now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Mr. OJ Spivey checking in. Another good show, brothers. We done did it again.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. Hey, you tell us what you think of today's show. You hit us up, Facebook, Instagram, X, at Jonesy and Brown, all one word, Jonesy and Brown, or you can hit us up at BITW Sports. Make sure you download our podcast. You can get that in all our archives, whatever we work on. Just go to bitwsports.com. Make sure you check out our weekly segments on Lance J Radio on HUR Voices channel. What channel is that? 141. Make sure you check that out. Special shout out to Lance J Radio for letting us guest host. Back. That was all right. That was good times, man. It was good being back in Chocolate City. We invaded Chocolate City, took it over, man, for that 1 hour.
Hey, man. I don't know if they're ready for more than that of me.
I don't know, but we'll find out, man. Hey, hit us up. Thank you for joining us. Next week is Thanksgiving, so I don't know if we're going to do a show or not. We'll figure it out.
We'll see. You got a Friday game next week. You got Thursday game. It's a lot going on.
It's a lot going on. So we'll figure out next week when we get there. But Mike Jones, any final thoughts?
Eagles over the Cowboys in a slugfest. The drama gets worse next week.
Oh, boy. Golly. Hey, we'll talk to you guys next time. If we don't hear from you next week, hey, man, enjoy your holiday season. Y'all take care, man. Eat lots of food for me and send us some leftovers. We out, y'all. Peace.
This podcast is a production of Best in the World Sports, a division of Definitive Visions Multimedia. To subscribe, download, and follow on social media, go to bitwsports.com. You're listening to Jonesy and Brown.